Welcome back, guys, to the Axios Fux Podcast. Vasily, what episode are we on?
We're number 40, 40.
Episode 40. That means 40 weeks of providing value on this podcast.
How many months is that? Let's say 4 weeks to a month.
10 months?
Is that right?
We're almost going on a year. Yeah.
Jesus, dude. Oh,
that's crazy.
That is nuts. That's nuts. I mean, we can go into today. We'll get into some. I think it's more of maybe we can think about or talk about some mentality, some big thinking, a couple different options of scenarios in which you want to live in. The options you gave me, I kind of liked. But a little backstory today, ran another half marathon. I'm doing a half marathon every month up until the Boston. And then about a month before the Boston Marathon, I'm going to be running the course, that's what I'm doing. I don't know if I told you, Christian. I'm going to run the marathon, not really timed per se, but I just want to run the course just to give myself that certainty I can do it.
That's a good idea.
And then I'll do the marathon, of course. But just miserable, man. Like this morning, I didn't get much sleep. Probably went to sleep at 1, woke up at 6. Got in, jumped in my car, had to drive to Lowell, bunch of traffic, and then I didn't really stretch at all. And then didn't have any water. Had a couple salt towels.
They shot the gun. And
yeah,
I
just ran. I put my headphones in. I watched or listened to some of Dave Goggins' book majority of the time, and my timing was about an hour 35.
Wow,
pretty quick. So we're talking like 8-minute miles. 8-minute miles. I need to get it down to realistically. The ideal would be probably to 7:30 per mile, and I'll be.
That's a perfect book.
Yeah, dude, perfect book for that. Absolutely perfect. But the whole idea is I don't need to do any. I've talked about it before. I don't need to do any of these things. People who did sign up for the marathon, I'm sure they're taking it easy probably right now up until January. That's when the real training starts with, running clubs and those things, those sort of things. But I want to prepare myself and I want to get accolades. Right now I have, I think 5 medals from competitions I've done. And I want to, by the end, I looked at them today, by the end. So right now I have like 65 miles worth of run in those 5 medals. By April, by the marathon, I want to have, we're talking November, December, January, February, March, April. So 5 more medals. And I'm going to go from marathon to an Ironman to an ultra to 100 miles in under 24 hours. So, wow. Physical things. Whenever I do stuff like this, whenever I have some sort of goal, my other things in life seem to always be better. So, not fun, but it helps every other dynamic in life, I found.
And do you want to tell people about so you're collecting donations for the cause?
Correct.
Can you tell everyone a little bit about what this cause is?
So you have an option. A lot of times running for the marathon, you have an option of charities you can donate towards. So obviously when you're drinking a bang, dude, middle of the day, working, when you're doing a marathon, when you're doing a charity, I actually am a director of my own right now. And I'm actually doing some other charitable work, but the one for the marathon is relative to me. And that's why I picked it, just so you feel a little bit more motivated about it. It's the Boys and Girls Club. It's dealing with individuals, young kids, the youth, on helping them realize their potential. That's like actually how they describe it, which is amazing.
Yeah.
So putting them in a scenario or position where they could actually feel, you could say, confident enough to know they can do something bigger than what their environment tells them they can do. Because a lot of them are coming from what you consider the slums of Boston. So great.
It's very local.
Very local. I think Boys and Girls Club, it might just be Massachusetts, but I could be wrong. I actually know it's in like Atlanta. They have it all the areas where kids aren't really getting the, those benefits.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. So if anyone wants to donate to the cause, Vasily's gonna, run for the cause. And I think that's really admirable. And I think that's gonna be awesome, honestly.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's
when is the marathon?
April, I believe April.
So you still have a lot of time.
Yeah, I have 10% of the goal. So I have 1,000. So I have 170 days to get another 9,000. I have a couple people who are going to be put down for a couple thousand per person. So it's just these small donations. Like if people were to donate even 10, 20, 15, $5, like it adds up.
Adds up.
Yeah. But Christian, I honestly wanted to go over this thing you texted me a little while back, and I'll kind of describe it. Really out of the blue, Christian had texted me, would you rather, it's a would you rather situation. Would you rather make 80K a year, $80,000 a year, 80,000, but freedom to travel? So would you rather make 80,000 a year, but be able to travel whenever, wherever with that money? So wherever you can make that money stretch, or 200,000 a year, but have to live in one spot. So everyone has their own idea of what freedom would really be. Freedom of more options in terms of your day-to-day. Like, you can buy as many coffees as you want. Probably you can buy more coffees than if you made $80,000 a year. But like, I mean, what's even that great, right? Compared to an $80,000 a year salary or income, and you can be wherever you want to be at any time you want to be. So I want you to dive into that.
Yeah. So like, I have, I've seen more and more that, you know, making more money is going to take more time. So I think there's one thing that maybe we have to add to this, which is the person that's making 200K, are they putting in more time? Let's say, is the person that is making 80K, are they putting in the same amount of time, or are they putting in 40 hours and then the person making 200 putting in 80 hours or 60 hours? So I think that's the only other variable we'd have to think about.
I'd say the person making 80, I'd say the person making 80 is doing 40 hours, and the person making 35 hours. The person making 80 is 35 hours. The person making 200 is 50.
Okay. So like, honestly, for me, what I've found is that, and this may be a limiting belief, but what holds true for most people in business is that it's a long-term game. Now, there's some people who pop off and will overnight or over a few years be able to make a crazy jump in their business. And, you know, for example, like somebody blowing up on social media, like E-Man, we both know him, blown up on social media. And that wasn't overnight, don't get me wrong. But there's people who it takes a couple of years or a few years, and then there's other people who it takes 20 years. So what I found
is more realistic. I mean, the
more realistic is going to take
the 3 to 5 years. The 3 to 5 years is like unheard of.
Yeah.
Even
so it's 5 years. Right. So the real question is, how are you going to live those 20 years, right? Because most likely it's going to take a good amount of time. Let's say 10 to 20 years. Are you going to, like I had mentioned to you, are you going to, you know, sacrifice all of these years working for that amount of money, being taxed, you know, 30 to 40% on your money, and slaving away for all those years that you are going to need to put in? Or are you going to kind of pave your own path and find a way to do what you want while making maybe a lesser income?
So that's a good point. The tax situation, because dude, the taxes, like, people really need to take into account now, because
it's yeah, I mean, it's
out of control. I just did the math. So if you're making 200,000, this is gross, times, let's say you're in the 30% bracket, pretty reasonable, right? 30% times 0.03.
Yeah, I think it'd be more. I think it'd be 200, probably 40%, but I don't know.
Let's just say 30.
Let's say 30.
It's 60,000, so you're netting 140, but before expenses. So then we're talking about you know,
let's say the 80 times 40%, or maybe it's probably 25%, right? I don't really know.
Let's just say it's 30%. We're just going to go 30% baseline. It's 56. You're going to be netting
56. Okay.
So 56. I mean, you lived in Colombia. You knew what the expenses were when you're living in Colombia. And I mean, 56,000. Would you live a good life with $56,000 a year?
Very good life. Yeah, for sure.
140 here in the US, dude, is nothing. It's
really not
such little amount of money. It's how much a month? It's like
I could do the math.
12. It's like around 12. It's like 11.5.
Okay.
Dude, 11.5 doesn't get you squat.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's, man, I mean, like ever since I've been back from my trip, I won't lie, my discipline is greater for sure. But it's only because the US is such a competitive plane that the more time you spend here, the more you want.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it's so
the more
sick.
time you spend
Crap
here,
rate.
the more you want, and the more you, I feel like, are kind of on this competitive plane of how do I get more? But in a lot of cases, you sometimes fall into the trap of getting into more debt. And dude, this is so tough for me because it's like I want to be extremely disciplined. I want to have a lot of things and to make a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, I know what my values are, and one of my biggest values is freedom.
Yeah.
It's freedom of time and freedom of like being able to do what I want. And that's why it's such a tough situation because you kind of have to just figure out what's best for you. I don't even know
I
what else
think
to say.
I mean I said we talked about this one time before in a previous podcast. And my thing is either do one of when you're doing something, you just have to be extreme. So
Yeah.
$200,000 netting 140 is not worth working, in my opinion. 50
Is
hours.
it? Yeah. I mean, I don't think many people think when they're working this business or any business for years that they're, sacrificing their life
Yeah,
for this,
they're trading their
right?
time for money.
Yeah. And it is for some people. It really is. Um, but I guess
I straight up think I think the cutthroat rule should be, is it extreme? Is what you're doing extreme? If you're only making 200, I think extreme would be if you're making 500 and above
mhm,
for income. If you're putting in 50 to 60 to 65 hours a week, I find it okay to be doing those numbers and living in one spot,
mhm,
just live in one spot, but have that freedom to do other things and grow yourself financially, in many different ways. If you're making 500 plus, if you're not making
mhm.
500 plus with how the taxes are right now and expenses, it's not worth the time. You can live just as good of a life, proportionately speaking, making 60 to the 500, to the 400 or the 360.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
doesn't get you much, dude. I mean, like if like I look at pre-approvals every week, and I'm seeing someone who's making $150,000 is pre-approved for like a $540,000 home. Now it's probably 500. So like, or 520 or something. Like a
Mhm,
$520,000 home. Number one, you're not buying a multi with 520. So you're paying straight single family mortgage. Uh,
mhm.
so it's just not really that captivating, like that interesting. If you're
Yeah,
in
I mean,
a
buying a house in Weymouth or Braintree, and then um, it's probably built in what 2000, like below 2000 is probably built in 1950,
Mhm.
19 between 1950 and 2000, and you're gonna have to update the things, and it's not gonna be, you know, for like something that would captivate us for sure.
Unless you get into a business like real estate sales, don't get me wrong, phenomenal.
Yeah.
But listen, eventually your time is it's gonna be worth more than the couple of $1,000s you're gonna make. Like you need to transition. Like once you've had enough time in the business, like now I'm looking into, okay, how do I get a supervisor's license? So supervisor's license is very similar. It's a supervisor slash like builder's license. It's basically the license to build, right? So if you had enough money, enough cash to buy a buildable lot, let's say for
Mhm.
200,000, you're in the town of Braintree or the city of Braintree, and you get the supervisor's license or a builder's license, and you build something that's 2,100 square feet, and I'm going to throw numbers at you, 2,100 square feet, you could probably get a house for 700,000, build a house that's worth 700,000. So depending on lumber costs, labor costs, you should be netting a lot more per minute, per day, per week than a real estate salesperson. So you got to find another avenue. If you're going to do it this way, like you can't be the feet on the ground your entire life.
Mm-hmm.
You can't be boots on the ground. This isn't worth the time to just just to get by. It's not worth getting by, in my opinion.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's so much that we could talk about this topic, but I think, getting people's wheels turning in their head about, different options that they have. What was that?
Just that what's worth more? What's worth more?
Yeah.
Time or money.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's probably somewhere in the middle, somewhere where you can, for most people at least, somewhere where you can, work those, 40 hours and be able to travel at least a few times a year. That's probably where, most people would be able to fit in. But yeah, I mean, I was watching that video I told you about, the lady, she's a coach. She was telling the viewers that, this year is the year that you hit 100 home sales. And the schedule that she went through was basically 8 hours a day of prospecting. And
which, if you prospected, 8 hours on the phone is like exhausting.
Right.
It's exhausting.
At that point, you're a call center.
Yeah.
And not only that, but you will probably make really good money, and you could make 500,000, especially if you close all 100
That's
of
not
those.
worth 500,000.
Yeah.
So not worth. I don't care, dude. Like, I'm not saying I make 500,000, but that's not worth. I don't
and
care.
I feel guilty when I say something like that, but that's how I feel the same way. I feel the same exact way. I feel guilty saying that, though, because it's almost like, I don't know. I mean, I just do.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it for 500. I would not do that amount of. There's way. I don't want to say easier ways, but there's way smarter ways of doing it.
Right.
And it might take me a little bit longer to figure out, but I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that, because then you're gonna, the person who does that and does 100 deals and makes all that money. If you go through that, are you going to be willing to actually leverage it? Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like you want to leverage a little bit earlier.
Exactly.
Because you don't want to be doing that. So, like, why not just leverage? I would rather be making 250, 275 and working, prospecting 3 hours a day and having a shit ton of people under me, and them making a really good income, me making good income, and not have to be every day, show up at the office every day and make phone calls to people like all day. Like, oh my God, it's if
That's a good point. That's a good point. Kind of having different streams as well, so that you can help other agents, because you don't necessarily have to be that one that makes $750,000 a year. Let's say if you're doing 100 listings, $7,500, which is my average commission, and then doing that, that many transactions, making 750,000. You could just do 24 or 36, and then also be helping other agents and be able to meet that as well, and not have to destroy yourself.
Selfish. I think it's counterproductive if you're not helping.
I
think personally,
I think so too.
You're not really bettering anyone's situation. Like yourself, like you're going to be worn down. Like, I already know, if you tell me you do 100 deals and you have to make that many phone calls a day, I already know what your stomach looks like.
What do you mean? What does it look like?
Dude, it's a round bubble. Like, it's a round bubble. You got the small arms, you got the stomach, and boobs. Come on.
And and what?
And you're balding. You're definitely balding.
I think so too. I think that I think glorifying that is terrible. Honestly, I really do, because you will get, like, for example, that coach, she'll glorify doing that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I get if it's maybe for 1 year, but still, it's almost like you don't
Dude,
know
she's
when this is gonna
glorifying it. You know
end.
why she's glorifying it?
So she gets to say, like, I don't know why.
I think it's just justification to herself that it's the right thing to do. I mean, I'm not saying it's wrong. No one can say I don't think I have the right to say it's wrong because I don't do that per se yet. But I'm so much more diverse in what I do in my day to day. It's like, dude, I just want to have a good you don't need I don't think you need to be doing that, in my opinion, to be making that type of money.
Right.
It's like not that much, even like $1 million a year for like that many hours. Like, come on, there's billionaires. You think they didn't crack the code and figure out that they only need to work like 45 hours a week, but do it smart? There's a smart way
Exactly.
to do it. There's a
Well,
smart way
that's so
to do it.
true. And um, I think you're totally right about that. And, to glorify that, I mean, imagine the amount of time taken away from your family in that year.
Yeah.
Imagine the time that, taken away from your health that year, or taken away from, and we do know some people who do like a lot of numbers.
Yeah.
And some of them, their health you can tell that their health is taking a toll, that their mental is taking the toll, the amount of vices that they have.
The only light they get, the only vitamin D they get is from the office lamp. You just know that their face is
Exactly.
more pale than their natural skin. Like it's
I
gone.
mean, look at me. I was tan, and
Yeah,
now I'm getting so pale. Well, it is winter months, but still.
it's not right. But let's wrap that up, Christian, right here. We want to keep it
Perfect.
light. Okay. So that's episode 40. You guys want to catch us on Instagram. Add us, share us, let us know what you want for the next episode. Give us some feedback. Christian, any last words?
No, share it on your Instagram story. We'll tag us and we'll reshare it. So you'll get featured on our pages.
Okay, dude. Well, I'll talk to you later, Christian.
Okay. See you
Uploaded.
later.
See you later.
Peace.